But the truth about grudges is that we can't move on. We find it very, very, very difficult to let go of the past. And again, like I said, it's because a lot of times we feel like, when we are holding a grudge or when we choose to forgive someone, that we're letting them off the hook. But oftentimes we lose sight of what's really, truly important in our lives. We forget that life is meant to be lived to its fullest potential, and that when we forgive, it's for our own redemption. It's for ourselves. When we hold on to grudges, we allow others to dictate the quality of our life, our self-worth, and our love for others. It's almost as if we forget that life is short and that each day we get up and we rise, that it's truly a blessing. And so to wake up with grudges and to wake up with weight on our shoulders, it's kind of like we're not valuing what our life is actually for and what it's worth. A lot of times I talk to people and they say, I don't know how to let go. I don't know how to forget. I don't know how to move on. And I say to that, okay, how much of the grudge is worth you wanting a better life? Because when we hold on to grudges, when we hold on to the past, again, we're not experiencing life to the fullest. It's almost like, okay, when a loved one passes away and we've held a grudge with them, we often say, if I had only, I should have, I could have, I wish I would have. Because of all the bitterness and the anger and the grudges that we hold on to, we're left with these thoughts, this sense of emptiness now that we can't move on from. And it's almost like, okay, so do you wait to forgive? And if you forgive, what are the conditions? Like, what's the conditions of forgiveness? Do we wait for that fatal call from that one person saying, such and such didn't make it? And then at that moment, we want to forgive. We want to let it all go. Why do we continue to allow the quality of our life to be less than what it's meant to be? Because we can't let go. Because the problem is that the person that we're pissed with, the person that we have a grudge with, they 9 times out of 10, they moved on. And they're fine. And they're feeling good because they are not in a place where it's affecting them. And a lot of times it's our own happiness that we're sacrificing. We fail to forgive. We let bitterness and grudges hinder our growth. It halts our journey. It halts the journey of trying to figure out what it is that you truly, truly need to be happy. Because how do you figure out what makes you happy if you can't let go of the past that hurt you and caused you anger and pain? So a lot of times we have to ask ourselves, if what happened to us in the past is worth giving up the greatest potential of our future. And we have to ask ourselves, if we choose love over anger, how much better would our life be? And then we have to ask ourselves, if happiness is love and living life to your greatest potential, is it possible when you have bitterness in your heart? How is it possible? How do you live life to the fullest? How do you live a happy life? How do you live to your greatest potential when there's bitterness and anger in your heart? How do you grow? How do you get past it? So now it's open for, let's have an open discussion. How do you live life to the greatest? How do you live life to your greatest potential with bitterness and anger in your heart? Anyone, chime in. When you can't let go of a grudge, when you can't move past your past, how do you grow? How do you tackle all the great things and the possibilities that life has to offer if you're still held down and weighted by your past? How do you move on? How do you love freely? How do you love with no conditions? How do we do that if we can't grow? if we can't let go of the past? How does growth become a possibility when you're holding on to grudges? Anyone have an opinion to that?
I think when you're in that moment, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking of everything that's hurting you. Once you're out of it, you realize it was hindering you. But when you're in that moment, you're not thinking of it as a hindrance.
Mhm. So if in the moment we don't think of it as a hindrance, and we kind of see it, kind of after the fact, how do we allow how do we keep from making the same mistake time and time again? Because it's kind of what happens. A lot of times in relationships, we'll be in a relationship and we're like, okay, this is what was wrong. He did me wrong or she did me wrong, and I just can't go through that again. I can't go through that again. And so, you hold a grudge, and then finally at some point you're like, okay, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go. But then the next person that you get involved with, it's almost as if they have to jump through 5 million hoops to prove their love, to prove that they're worthy. Because the truth of the matter is you have not really let go of the grudge and the hurt and the pain that you held against the person that hurt you all those months or years ago. So now everyone that you come in contact with is now paying the price for your past. So where's the real growth? So I get what you're saying. Like, in the moment, in the meantime, you don't see the hindrance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But what happens when the next person comes along and that relationship doesn't work, and the next one and the next one, and you keep losing friends and friend after friend after friend, and relationship after relationship, and family relationships are faltering? It's kind of like, wait a second. What is it that's keeping you stuck? So now it's no longer a hindrance. You're just stuck.
Right. Probably just goes back to that not wanting to feel that, whatever you felt before.
Right. But the great thing about life is that you never know what's coming.
True.
But that's also a double-edged sword about life, right?
Right.
Because we never know what's coming. We just kind of. But then when you live life with this thought that, the possibility of being hurt, brokenhearted, stepped on, you miss out on 20 other possibilities for greatness in jobs and love and friendship and, just these amazing life changes and opportunities that you won't even allow to come in. Because true, it's almost like with a business. You're going to have good and you're going to have bad. But if you never deal with the bad, you probably won't get any of the good either.
True.
You're gonna have clients that, if you're a hairdresser, you're gonna have clients that walk in the door and, you just can't please them. But then you might have 5 more that rave about your work. But if you constantly say, you know what, I'm not going to take on new clients because, these last 5, they were awful. Well, you just might have shut the door on 20 because you can't let go. We can't get out of that mindset. I'm not going to be hurt again. I'm not going to be – well, you know what? My grandmother's 92. You know what she tells me? Honey, keep living. You will be hurt again. You will be heartbroken. You will be disappointed. You will be let down. But for every heartbreak, there's an amazing somebody there to hug you and kiss you and love you and be there for you and to be your biggest cheerleader and to be your biggest supporter. So, yes, heartbreak, there's no guarantee that it won't come again. Yet you missed out on the simple pleasures that end up being life's treasures because you can't let go, because you hold on to the grudge.
True.
So anybody dealing with a grudge that they want to let go, that they want to finally lay down, but they kind of feel like, if I forgive, then I'm letting them off the hook. If I forgive, I'm letting them off the hook. I'll tell you, I am a survivor of abuse. And it wasn't until I forgave my attackers, because it occurred between the ages of 3 and 5, and then again when I was 13. It wasn't until I forgave that I was able to heal and move on and have happy, productive friendships, relationships with family. It wasn't until then, because I judged everybody based on what happened between the ages of 3 and 5, and I judged everybody based on what happened to me at 13 and how my mother and my father and how everybody responded to it and how I felt like they just weren't, I wasn't the priority. So I was mad. I was mad at everybody. I was mad because nobody was on Wendy's team. And I was holding a grudge, and I was very angry. I remember being in 5th grade, and I tore the classroom apart. I was angry because from 3 to 5, I wasn't a priority, so I continued to feed into that mindset. I remember when I was 14, I would light trash cans on fire. I would just do things that just were out of control. And then the people that would say that they loved me and they were there for me, I would mess over them. And I went through my whole teenage life like that. And a lot of my adult life. And it was when I decided to let it go that I was able to start enjoying my life. Enjoying the great life that I was blessed with. And actually be able to appreciate it. And that's when I started seeing growth in myself. Because I had to let go. I had to forgive. Does that mean that I left my attackers off the hook? No. What they did was despicable. Yet, I needed to put that in its place and just let it be. I didn't need to bury it, because that's a problem. People tend to want to bury things. I didn't bury it. I just let it go. And I stopped looking at myself as a victim and instead as a survivor. And so, no, everyone's story isn't my story. Everyone hasn't been victimized or abused or sexually attacked. But even when someone breaks your heart and you just can't figure out how to move on, you have to let it go. So again, like I said, the simple pleasures in life are your life treasures. But you don't recognize the simple pleasures. You can't embrace the simple pleasures. And you can't even see them as life treasures until you're ready to let go. And in order to have growth in a relationship, in a business, you have to be willing to let go of the bad so that you can grow with the good. So are there any more questions, comments, opinions, thoughts? Anyone want to chime in on anything?
How do you determine the difference between growth and letting go and not being fearful and learning a lesson?
Wait, say that one more time.
What's the difference between learning the lesson and going, okay, I learned this from this and this won't happen again, and the fear?
And the fear?
Mhm.
Okay.
Because you can have the fear, you can move on from the fear and, let's say, heartbreak, and start dating and talking to people, but, okay, I learned this, so I won't allow this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That could be kind of similar.
Mhm. Right. So the real question is, have you truly let go? Mm-hmm. Because the thing about fear is that the fear is going to be there. right?
Right.
You know, when I started my company a year ago, the fear was, I'm still afraid today. And it's a year later, and every time I try to take it to the next level, the fear increases. The difference is that you don't let the fear hinder you from moving forward. So the fear is real. That's our flesh. That's just human nature. The fear is human nature. But it's when the fear becomes bigger than our desire to move on and do more and to, build relationships and seek new opportunities. Are you there? I think we
I'm
here.
Yeah, I hear a lot of feedback too.
I hear a lot of feedback.
I don't know what it's from.
But does that make sense?
Yeah.
The fear part, that's, so does that answer your question, or did I go all the way around?
No.
Not really.
No, you did.
But yeah, so that's kind of, and you know what? I think sometimes we're afraid to be afraid, but it's okay to be a little bit afraid, because it just means that you're alive, and that you're present, and that it kind of keeps you on your toes, because it's like, okay, then you have to ask yourself, well, what am I really afraid of? And then that's a whole nother, that's a gut check, that's a reality check. What am I afraid of? And then you kind of establish, okay, well, let me see if I try this. Am I still going to be afraid? Is it still going to hold me back, or am I going to be okay with moving on? Sure. So, anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Well, next week, I will be doing another call-in, and it will be on the topic of accountability. Because a lot of times we tend to not have those gut checks, those reality checks. We don't hold up the mirror and say, okay, you know what? This has happened to me before. What am I responsible for? What am I accountable for in this situation? I've known people who, they go from job to job to job. And it's like they always say, well, I couldn't get along with her or him. And it's like, wait a second. You mean to tell me in every single job that you go to, there's always somebody that just makes you to the point where you got to quit? So wait a minute. Are you truly holding yourself accountable for the part and your role in the situation, or are you just jumping from relationship to relationship, friendship to friendship, job to job, because you don't want to hold yourself accountable for your own actions? So that call will take place on Wednesday, May 21st at 8 p.m. And I promise it'll start at 8 p.m., not 8:05, not 8:10, but I'll do my best to make sure that it starts at 8 p.m. So I thank you guys for calling in. For those that were just listening, I hope you listen in next week, May 21st, 8 p.m. The topic will be accountability. All right? Thank you guys for joining in, and you have a great night.
You too.
All right.